Welcome to this week's episode of The Fitness Solution. And on the other end of the line, I've got Australian-based personal trainer, Shannon Billows. You may have come across him on Instagram because his Instagram has just like massively blown up over the last sort of 6 months or so. And I share a lot of his posts as well because they're bloody awesome. So hello to Shannon.
Hello, thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thanks for coming on. It's we did an Instagram live, didn't we? Probably last year now at some point.
Yeah, probably a good maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was fun. So I've wanted to get you onto this for a while, but it was a case of me pulling my finger out a little bit, and lockdown has helped with that. So that's cool. How's life in Australia?
Yeah, it's probably the same as everywhere else at the moment with the coronavirus.
Yeah, it's fun and games, isn't it? It's fun and games. So I suppose the best thing to start with on most of these things, to introduce yourself to the audience, tell us what you do, who you are, how you got into it, all the good stuff, and then we'll just take it from there.
Sure. So my name is Shannon Billows. I've been a PT, more specifically a fat loss coach, for probably just on 10 years now. So qualified as a fat loss coach. I used to be overweight as a kid. So the whole reason I got into becoming a personal trainer is I used to be, I was 120 kilos when I was 15 years old. And then through my own research and just learning, as you do, reading and trying, I lost 50 kilos. You could probably say the hard way, doing everything myself. And then I got to a point where I was just, working in a call center, not really doing too much with my life. And then I got to the point, my now wife said to me, she's like, "What are you going to do with your life?" And she's like, "Why don't you get into personal training? You've lost weight. I helped my brother lose some weight. And if I could help him lose weight, I can help anyone lose weight." Hope he doesn't listen to this. No,
I hope he does.
Yeah, I'll send it to him.
Yeah.
So from there, I did my certification, and that was 10 years ago now. And I've probably been through every fad diet you can think of. Like, I like to do things myself first before I recommend them to clients. Right. Even still to this day, if something new comes out, I'll still try it. And yes, and I was, as we were saying just before off air, I'm a lazy trainer. Not in the fact that I just don't like doing anything, but I like to be fast, efficient, and take the path of least resistance, if that makes sense. Excellent. So if you hate cardio and you don't really like exercising, you probably like my methods.
That's always good to know. Right, well, there's two things there. I think we'll start with lazy training because I think it's great. I love it. Yep. And I've never heard it before. So I think we need to go into that. So you just strip it all down. I saw the other day on your Instagram, you put up a post saying one of your clients said to you, "Shannon, you know so much about fitness, you should write a book." And you're like, "Well, I would. It'd be one page of stick to your calories and the rest would be blank. So it'd be pointless." So is that generally the way you go? Like, how do you strip it down? How do you make it as easy as possible? How do you make it basically like the Formula One of fat loss? You can use that.
Correct. Yeah. So the way, and again, I always speak to my clients. So my clients are mostly women who are looking to lose weight, anywhere from 5 to 50, 100 plus kilos, however much they need to lose. People who are busy, don't have too much time. That's pretty much myself. And the way I see it is, if you didn't have to do exercise, would you be doing it for just the sake and the fun of it? Would you do it? If I had the choice, no, I would not do it if I had the option. So what's the next best thing? We always go for the path of least resistance, which is basically the most important thing when it comes to fat loss, which is calories in, calories out. And we know with all the current evidence that we have that the most effective way, or you must be in a calorie deficit to lose body fat, and that the path of least resistance, the easiest way to drop body fat is to stop eating. If you just stopped eating, you would just drop weight every single day until there was nothing left of you. So we can't ask people to go and starve themselves, obviously, because it's not ethical.
It's pretty annoying, but it's not ethical, isn't it?
I know, right? So we give them enough calories to keep them satisfied, meeting their micronutrients, getting their macros, getting a healthy amount of protein and fat. And then we get them to create their own diet with their own lifestyle and their own food choices.
Yep.
I'm not a really big fan of giving meal plans or anything like that. Number one, I'm not a registered dietitian. And number two, if I gave someone a meal plan, it's always going to be biased to my meal preferences anyway.
Yep.
So I'd rather teach people how to fish as opposed to giving them a fish.
Yep.
So by that, not only are we guaranteeing them results, like this is your calories you need to lose X amount of weight per week. You don't need to exercise at all. This would just purely from restricting your calories. This is what your results would be. And then from that, you build in habits slowly. So getting in some activity, picking an exercise choice that's going to be more beneficial for you. I'm always biased. I recommend weight training. Number one, I'm biased because I enjoy weight training. And number two, you build muscle whilst burning some calories. Whereas people spend, hours and hours on cardio machines and they just don't get anywhere just because they just quite don't seem to get the energy balance. They think that the amount of energy they expend is far more than the amount they consume. And yeah, we can go down that rabbit hole for hours. But yeah, calories, protein, exercise, and above all, always making sure you get enough sleep. And basically the pillars. So sleep, nutrition, training, and repeat. And just doing that for as long as you possibly can endure it and to get to your result.
Yeah. No, there's so much great stuff in there. Obviously, Psycho, calories in, calories out is great.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's called Psycho. Resistance training, I mean, it just improving your metabolism. The amount of people that I'm starting to see come into the gym, talk to me, send me messages, all talking about how their metabolism is screwed up, how they have metabolic issues and stuff like that and everything else. And it's like, okay, but I always think, what kind of car are you driving? If you're driving, a HGV or an old banger or something like that, then it's gonna have its problems. Whereas if you're driving like a Porsche or you're driving a high-end car, lots of muscle on it and stuff like that, then, it's going to be better. So what do? We service the old car, we improve it, we put new tires on it, we improve the engine, put new oil in it. And then slowly but surely we'll make that a much more efficient engine to drive you forward. And it will be far better for your fuel consumption. And that's like the analogy I use for resistance training. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take, a car that needs work and working on it to make it a better car for you. So it can last you longer, drive you better, do a lot better. How do you go about figuring out people's calories? Do you have any like tricks, tips, hacks? Because the amount of people as well coming up to me like, how do I figure out how many calories do I need to use and all the rest of it?
And when it comes down to figuring calories out, I mean, pretty much any basic calorie calculator is going to get you pretty close or a best guesstimation. So none of them are 100% accurate anyway. I mean, I like to think the one that I use, I share with everyone for free on my Instagram profile.
I was going to say, you have it on there, don't you?
Yeah. So if you went and downloaded my calorie calculator, it's on my profile. That's the exact same calorie calculator I use for my clients or my high-end paying clients. I don't need to necessarily charge for that because I could put numbers into a spreadsheet and say, this is your calories, give me $500. That's not what, coaching and training is about. But any calculator is going to get you really, really close. And it's from there, you have to adjust up and down depending on how your results play out. Now, the method I like to use with my clients, and this is probably something that I've just accumulated over time, we have a recommendation that pretty much, I wouldn't say for women, but for men, we want their waist to be half of their height. Okay, that gets you out of risk of your nasty stuff. So diabetes, heart disease, cardiovascular disease, and that's your waist circumference. If you're above that number, your waist above half of your height, you need to lose body fat. That should be your main priority. Once you're there, you're healthy. So if you want to stay there, cool. My job's done. You're classified as a lean, healthy individual. From there, if you want to keep leaning down for aesthetic purposes, go for it. If you want glistening abs on the beach, awesome. If you want to get down to the point where your abs lean in a bodybuilding competition, perfect. Go for it. The only difference is between being healthy body fat and extremely abs lean is the calorie deficit just goes for so much longer. And obviously you want to maintain as much muscle as you possibly can. And with women, the metrics that we use instead of, so with guys, what I like to use is the belly button measurement or the lowest or the widest portion of their waist. And then for women, we use 47% of their height and we use their small waist. And the reason being is women's hips vary so much more in size compared to men's. So you can have two women of the same height and their hips can vary sometimes 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, which throws the measurements or the index off. So we use their small waist, and it doesn't matter. I mean, this is basically takes away the confusion with the scale weight and if I gain weight or lose weight. Basically, if your waist measurements come down, you are losing body fat. And the reason we sort of use the waist measurement as well is because for health purposes, we know that the visceral fat, the stuff that you store around the organs, the heart, the lungs, that's the real nasty stuff. And don't get me wrong, too much fat is still too much fat. If you were 90% body fat and your waist was perfect, it's still too much body fat. It's still inflammatory. So we want to get your waist to that healthy point. Most people underneath everything are pretty much going to be almost identical. So we all have the same bone structure. We probably vary a couple of kilos in body mass in terms of muscle mass. And then your BMR, the amount of calories you burn on a given day, is going to be highly tied in with how tall you are. And that's highly in correlation to your organ size. So organs, brain, lungs, that burns most of the calories in your body in a given day, probably a good 70%. The taller you are, the larger you are, the larger your organ size. So people who are 6'5", they just can eat like a horse. I wish I was 6'5".
I'm 6'4", and I do eat like a horse. And so I am really thin.
Yeah, and the taller you are, just the larger your organs are, the more metabolic processes need to happen to keep you alive. And not to mention, usually the taller you are, the heavier you are. So you need to move more weight from point A to point B, compared to Susan, who's 5'2", who works at a sedentary desk job and barely gets 3,000 steps a day, just doesn't get to eat much food, especially when she's trying to lose weight. So it's all about finding out your calories. Back to our point, finding out your calories, figuring out what calories you need to lose weight. Sometimes it might be really low, sometimes it might be really high, but whatever number it is the number that it is. And there's a saying I like to use with my clients, and that's, don't be upset with the number that you need to lose weight, because the number is whatever it needs to be.
I was having a conversation with someone on Instagram the other day, and she was like, I've done my BMR and it's come out at this. Is that good or bad? I'm like, it is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah. There's no good or bad. Everything is only ever what it is. Like, people try and embellish it with emotion and good, bad, healthy, not healthy, all these things. But it's your number. That's just life. Like, get on with it. I mean, in fairness, interestingly, like, the larger clients who obviously have a higher BMR, who when we sit down and figure it out, their number will come out quite high, and I'll be like, that's really quite high. And they'll be like, I know, it's great. Right, let's go. And they're like, they get like 2,100 calories or something. They're like, great, I can do that.
I look at that and I'm like, that's my maintenance calories. And that's their dieting calories. It makes me sad.
How do you said the classification of whether you're healthy or not, are you judging that via body mass index?
No, so not the body mass index. So I use the height to waist ratio.
Right. I've never seen that graph. Okay. And
it's probably more something that I've accumulated over time of, just doing different programs myself, different experts that I've spoken to, mentors and things like that. It doesn't really matter to me at the end of the day what people weigh. It doesn't matter if you're 6 foot and you're 80 kilos, or if you're 5 foot and 80 kilos. If your waist is within the healthy range, 50% or below of your height in terms of circumference, then you're healthy, like in terms of body fat percentage. And then from there, how much lean do you want to get? Do you want abs? Cool. This is how much lower we need to keep going until you see abs. That's basically close to 10% body fat, at least for men anyway. Women, I think it's about an extra 8% on top of the men's equivalent.
Between 15 to 20, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. You said something key. Sorry, I'm just trying to read my very scribbly notes. You said something awesome in that section. You said, like, we then see how the results play out and have to amend from there. A lot of people, in my experience, they'll get their calorie number, their BMR number, whatever it might be, however you get that figure. And then they're like, okay, great, they'll do it, and they might not lose weight, and then they'll think they failed. And it's like, no, you need to, no one ever allows themselves the time for experimentation. No one ever allows themselves, like, that 6-week period where we've got to do it, you've got to nail it day in, day out, and then we can review from there and move forward. They think the second they start doing it, it's going to work for them straight away based on all these internet calculations and everything else. And it's,
Yep.
I find that's a real pain. And then what can happen is they can restrict a lot more, and it can get worse and worse. And then they're going to have a massive blowout at the end. Because when you, and I was going to say, you figure out the calories, you get people to do it as fast and as quick and as sort of straightforward as possible. Do you ever experience that with people? Do they ever kind of get so far and then they just can't continue it anymore? What happens there? How do you create longevity in your clients for it to remain?
So I definitely think it's important to create light at the end of the tunnel as well. So people get into the mind frame of when they start dieting, this is my life forever, which it's not. A diet is a band-aid, and the faster you get it off, the better, because you can then go back to resume somewhat normal life. It will never be as many calories as you were eating previously, because that's what got you into trouble in the first place. But you will have a new maintenance that you will need to aim for once you've lost the weight that you want to lose. And this also comes and ties into the whole starvation mode myth, and the metabolic adaptation, which is now a bit more prevalent with people. They're a bit more aware of metabolic adaptation, that it's a good thing. Like, your body should be adapting to the weight that you are. So people think that when they eat really low calories for a long time, that their metabolism is going to slow down to the point where they can no longer keep losing body fat. What it really comes down to is accuracy of tracking by the 6th month of a diet. So they get to the point where people just get lazy. They just forget things. They can't be bothered tracking anymore accurately. And then they wonder why they're not losing weight. That's all it really is. And anytime I've had clients who I've signed up for my coaching service, and they've told me that this is the calories that they should be eating, and they've signed up for my service, and I've given them about, I think, a 10-calorie difference. And the only difference was they stuck to the calories because they were now paying me for it. So there was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong with the metabolism. It was just the fact that someone, I believe, like in terms of me and you, like our job is to help guide people and put them in the right direction. I believe that when people are paying for a service, they're much more likely to stick to it because their hard-earned money is going to something, and they're saying, I'm purchasing this for myself. And then usually most people will stick to the program. Not everyone does, but hopefully most people do. And then it's just about personalization, trying to get that person to stick to their calories, as many different ways as we possibly can that caters to that person. But going back to your light at the end of the tunnel story, it's sort of, if you set up the right expectations from the very start, then I think it's much easier for people to transition to maintenance calories at the end as well. So I like to personally follow a method which is a reverse taper diet. I actually like to start people on the lowest amount of calories possible at the start. And then as they get leaner, we increase their calories more towards maintenance towards the end. And this works 2 ways. Number one, you should be on the lowest amount of calories when you have the most amount of body fat to lose, because your body is willing and able to give up that body fat. And number two, it teaches people how to eat at maintenance when they finish a diet. So the leaner you get, the less your body is willing to give up a certain amount of body fat. So, if you're 100 kilos overweight, your body will just churn through body fat and just keep giving up lipids, as much as it possibly can. Once you start getting down to really lean levels, and when I say really lean levels, I'm saying almost bodybuilding competition lean levels. So don't think of just the average person. Once you get down to that level, your fat availability isn't enough. So you actually need to increase your energy intake to create a smaller deficit, but you have to be so much more accurate with it. So instead of going from high calories and then we taper down, we flip it the other way. So we start you on really low, and then we taper your calories up towards the end of the diet. So when you do finish, you're like, oh, I'm only about 200 calories off maintenance. And you should know roughly what you should be.
That's also a great idea, because obviously when people first sign up for something, when they first get started, they're going to have a lot more motivation for which to stick to it. So by maximizing that amount of time, that's a really, really good strategy. It's something I've never thought of before. That's really, really great. And so you mentioned you've done a hell of a lot of fad diets.
Yeah.
What have you done?
What haven't I done? So I've done keto. It was all right.
How was
nothing
keto?
Magical. You definitely don't get very hungry on keto. So number one, enjoyment is not that great. I mean, there's only so much bacon and chicken and tuna you can really eat. So you get to the point where you're like, oh, this is a bit too much. But you just don't get as hungry on keto as well.
Right.
I've done really low fat, high carb diets. I've
Okay.
done intermittent fasting, which is more of a, I mean, it's a tool, having
Hmm.
fasting periods and things like
Yeah,
that to
it's a useful
strategize,
one. Yeah.
strategize your calories. Um, oh, you name it, I've probably done
Oh,
it.
really? Did you get
Different types of fasting.
Did you get keto breath?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it
lovely.
stinks. It's like
Yeah, I
that
bet
sweet,
that's.
sweet type
Oh,
smell.
oh,
Yeah,
not my cup of tea. And
yeah.
have you done the carnivore?
No, I haven't got it that extreme,
Right.
but
Okay.
there was one, a coach who I follow. His name is Borg Fagerli.
Right. Okay.
He's a Norwegian strength coach.
Yep.
Really, really, really smart guy. Really smart. And he was very much into the carnivore diet with one of the programs that I purchased. This is probably only going back 6 months ago. And it just wasn't for me. Like the program was awesome, but the whole dieting just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And he had all the evidence to back it up to say, this is what, people should be doing now. And I was just kind of like, I said, even if all the evidence mounts to this perfect diet, I'm just not going to stick to it.
Yeah. Same here. Same here.
And
There's no way.
why do something that you just know you're not going to stick to?
That's a very, very, very good point. That's awesome. So, what's like fitness like in Australia?
Um, I would probably say it's very much like it is, I would say, in the UK and the States. Um, Australia's probably a lot more fitness conscious now. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years. It's probably
Yeah.
much more conscious now than it was 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, and you get a mix of everything. So, I mean, I work online and in a commercial gym. We were having a conversation just before. So we've got like F45s, the group training style, the whole bodybuilding scene, physique competitor scene, and you've got the strongman powerlifting, that sort of stuff. I don't think it's not portrayed as much as a hardcore bodybuilding scene over in Australia as it may be, say, in America. I'm not too sure what it's like in the UK. But in terms of like nutrition awareness, it's probably still not quite there with Australia. We don't have nutrition labels on everything. So I went to America for my honeymoon. Didn't matter where you went. If you went to a fast food restaurant or a restaurant, it had calories on everything. Like just the burgers that they made in their shop or whatever that was, it would tell you the calories on everything. Whereas Australia doesn't quite have that. So you do have to do a little bit more digging. But we're very much from my perspective and what I have observed, everyone's very much on the healthy eating, green juices, that kind of thing, and the normal fitness influencer type stuff.
Yeah.
But we're just trying to bring it to light and just follow the evidence and calories in,
Absolutely.
calories out,
Absolutely.
get your strength training
When
in.
I was out there in 2018, sorry, we need to repeat that. Calories in, calories out, and get your strength training on.
Yeah.
When I was in Australia in 2018, I was quite surprised how like America it felt to me,
Yep.
how big things felt, how like your supermarkets and stuff is. Everything in the UK is very small. Everything's
Okay.
a lot smaller. It's a lot like a bag of crisps over here isn't like huge, we can't get them, but they're like a
Yeah.
treat for us. They're not just a normal bag of crisps and
Yeah.
stuff. I was quite surprised at that actually. I thought you'd be a bit more like we are in the UK rather than the US, where it
Yep.
is in abundance. Is
Yeah.
is obesity a big issue in Australia?
It is. I wouldn't say it's as much as say America,
Right.
but probably. Oh, you probably say. I mean, most of the population is clinically overweight. Like
Right.
their waist would be above half of their height, if that's
Yep.
for an example. But it's becoming, again, people are becoming more aware and more health conscious over time.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably just a matter of time. And if you sort of look at the example of say smoking, we're getting to the point now where like the next generations are getting to the point where smoking is looked at as a dirty habit now.
Yep.
And it's taken how many years, 30 years or so, from people who used to smoke packs a day to the point now where you shouldn't be smoking, or it's a bad, unhealthy habit to smoke. And I think we're slowly getting to that point where keeping your weight too high is unhealthy for you. And this one's probably, and if we're going to talk about Instagram posts and things like that, talking about calorie restriction and eating in a calorie deficit or eating for a certain size is sometimes somewhat taboo on Instagram because of people with eating disorders and things like that. So I'm not sure if you come across that in your post, but I've had it in my post because my target demographic is people who are overweight, who need to lose weight for health and then for the side of vanity if they want to look good. But you can't please everyone at the same time. So you're always going to get people who, suffer from eating disorders or, they're orthorexic or anorexic who will take every post that you do to heart and say that this is unhealthy, you shouldn't be promoting this. It should be promoted to the right person for the right reasons. That sort of makes sense. So I think as a whole, Australia is becoming more aware in terms of what a healthy body fat generally represents, what healthy daily movement represents, getting at doing your 5,000, 10,000 steps a day. And then hopefully with the mindset of don't do it to the extreme. Like you shouldn't be going crazy overboard. And I like to work in ranges. Here's your lower limit for your waist. Here's your upper limit for your waist. Here's a minimum steps. Here's a upper level of steps. Work within these targets and everything will be okay.
Yeah. That's something I've started introducing with my clients is like a calorie window.
Yes.
So like I probably set them up on a BMR as their lower limit. And then I take Jordan Syat's version of, body weight in pounds times by 12 as like their upper limit. And then that's it. And if you're falling within that window, you're doing just fine. You're going to be okay, right? Because then that gives you the flexibility of social events, birthday parties, holidays. It gives you, and it's not like there's not a line in the sand where if you go above that line by 1, you fail. And if you stay below it by 1, you've succeeded. And it just takes people out of that prison of I've got to hit this number. And I'm starting to really embellish that and use that a lot more. I'm finding it's very effective.
Yeah, it's that perfectionist mindset, I suppose, like having to be exactly on your macros or exactly on your steps. And one thing I like to try and explain to my clients, if you do go over your calories, cool, you went over your calories. It's better to be over by 100 than 1,000 calories. And the analogy that I was, because, when people tend to go over their food or if they have, quote unquote, a bad food, then the rest of the day is just set up poorly and they just end up eating so much extra crap that they wouldn't have anyway. It's the same concept as if you spend $100 on your credit card, you don't then go and max out your credit card because you spent $100 on it. You're like, well, no, that's stupid. So you don't need to do the same thing with your food nutrition. If you went over by $100, you just save $100 the next day, and then your calories work on a weekly average as well. So we give people the freedom to have, social weekends, budget your calories throughout the week so you can have slightly less calories, you can have a bit more in the weekend. Life's not going to be miserable or as miserable on the diet this way. So when you do go back to social events, you'll have somewhat of an idea of what you can include into your calories. By that point, hopefully you're eating maintenance, which will give you a whole lot more calories anyway. We just don't want you to go above your calories for too long because that's when the fat gain happens, especially over long periods of time.
That's such a good point. I mean, I always say like you win the league by a point or you win the league by 20 points. It doesn't matter. You've still won the league. So if you stay under by 1 or if you stay under by 30, it doesn't matter. You're still going to win. You just have to do it consistently over such a long period of time. And that's the real nub of it, isn't it? It's just keeping it going over that period of time. So what would you say people struggle with most in terms of losing weight?
Struggling, well, it really depends on the person, but I would say in terms of really getting people results, just really like when I explain to people or when I try to explain to people, it's calories in, calories out, really just solidifying it is just calories. That's all it is when it comes to fat loss. And like, I understand. I'm like, but all it is calories.
Insulin? What about insulin?
It's just calories. It's just calories. It's just calories. It's just calories. That's all it is. And the easiest way to control for your calories is what goes into your mouth. And once people truly understand it's the food that goes into their mouth, that's when everyone has this aha moment. And I even had it myself when I first started doing it. It just clicks and you're like, I've been missing all of this for so many years or months or however long you've been doing it. And whether it doesn't matter what diet you follow, it's still a matter of eating under your calories. So whether you eat 6 meals a day or paleo or keto or, vegan, it doesn't matter. If your goal is fat loss, which my clientele is, you just have to find a way for you to be able to eat under your maintenance calories, or for at least a good deficit for long enough for you to get the results that you want. Whatever you do doesn't bother me at all. I just happen to find that calorie counting and getting some steps in and doing some weight training is the fastest, efficient way. Get it done. Don't have to worry about it again. And if you ever gain the weight back, you now know how to lose weight again if you need to. Yeah.
I find people need to, people don't relate exercise to calories enough. So
yes.
in people's heads, they'll be like, oh, no, well, I weight train, therefore I can kind of eat what I want. Or it'll be like, I weight train, I don't have to worry about the food. Like, it's no, you weight train, your weight training is about your equation for your calories. Yes. That is the point. And I genuinely, not enough people are aware of that at all. And it's like, your weight training is your investment for the future. It's like you taking £10,000 or $10,000 and giving it to an investment banker for your retirement. It's like you're going to accrue yield over time on that money, and that's what you do. That's why you go to the gym 3 times a week and lift heavy weights. If you don't do that, then you're cheating. If you just put it in a savings account, for instance, you're not getting enough interest on it, especially in the UK. And and therefore you're cheating yourself out of big optimal gains. And it all comes down to your retirement is basically your calorie equation, and you've got to drive towards it and build that yield over time. That's what I find. What kind of other things do you find your clients really struggle with, like time to fit it all in? Is that a big one?
Well, I mean, my programs are pretty minimal with clients. So my recommendation is, in terms of weight training anyway, is anywhere from 2 to 4 weight training sessions a week. That's all you need to do as a minimum. Just if you just do that, I wouldn't even say as a minimum, but just a recommendation. Something that's just going to challenge your body. Weight bearing training, squats, push-ups, lunges, overhead presses. It doesn't need to be fancy. If someone doesn't enjoy that, just do what you enjoy. As long as it's physically active and you enjoy it, you're much more likely to stick to it long term. Which is, for me, I hate cardio. Like, the most amount of cardio I would ever do is I'll get some Netflix, chuck it on the treadmill, and I'll kill some time between clients. But I mean, to give you an idea, like, I've only been wearing my watch for half the day anyway, but I think I've done 1,111 steps. There you go.
Well, I mean, granted, it's 7 p.m., 8 p.m. in Melbourne. Where am I at? I'm at, and it's, what is it now? 10:26 here in the UK. I'm on 631. I'm doing well today.
Yeah.
I better go for a jog.
I might be, I might be close to maybe 4,000, if that. But even with cardio, the thing I see is people they'll go and bust their ass and they'll try and do a heap of cardio. But again, how long can you consistently keep up that level of cardio on top of your daily routine, your partner's stress life, your kids' stress life? The coronavirus at the moment is stressful as well. People have lost their jobs. You need to find a sustainable solution long term, and that solution will change depending on the circumstances at the time as well. So, to give you another example, I've had clients and myself who I would do fasting for a good, sometimes 3 months, 4 months straight, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't suit me to do fasting anymore because my schedule's changed or something else has changed. Because that one thing has worked in the past doesn't necessarily mean that that one thing is right for you right now. Whatever allows you to get the fastest results with the least amount of resistance right now is a plan that you should be doing right now. So, and that may change again in 2 months or 6 months or 5 months. You might get fired, you might get a promotion. So your life stresses will change, and then your dieting and training stresses have to change in accordance with your life stresses. And people try and do too much at once. This is something that you see with New Year's resolutions. So they come in, they are going to quit smoking, stop drinking, do extra hours at work, and they're going to take up 5 days a week at the gym, and it's too much too soon. And there's a really good book, I'm not sure if you've read it, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Really good one.
I know about it, yeah.
And it's just about making really small incremental changes over time, and just by improving 1% every little bit, it becomes a sustainable long-term habit that you build into your lifestyle. And the reason I see, well, my personal experience, I see people who gain the weight back is, number one, it's usually too strict during the diet phase. Number two, they don't really know what they're doing. So people usually crash diet their way down to a low body fat, and then they stop. They're like, oh, what now? Or they follow some, shitty meal plan, which is chicken and broccoli 5 times a day. And then after they're finished, they're like, oh, well, I don't know what to do now, or I've been so restrictive for so long that I'm going to make up for lost time and catch up with friends and go out and party because I've got this new black dress and I want to wear it out because I look awesome. And then people slowly gain the weight back over and over again, and the gym falls on the wayside. And yeah, it's not a lifestyle. So pick the things you like and enjoy. Try different things, obviously, and see what you like and enjoy. And then whatever you filter through all the crap, once you find what you like and you're in a calorie deficit for the goal of fat loss, do that.
Yeah.
How you go about it doesn't bother me.
No. Just get into a calorie deficit. It's like, come on.
It is.
I find with cardio as well, like it's hard to keep the time you need to dedicate to it up, because like you could probably get into the gym, do a half hour, 45-minute weight session, maybe not even sweat a lot. I barely sweat at all. But you don't have to have it that high intensity. You don't have to do it that quickly. You don't have to get your heart rate that high for it to be efficient, effective, and useful. And it might not be optimal, but it will still be useful. And then you can just walk out, you can just get on with your day, everything else, it's done, it's ticked off for the day. With chasing the cardio down, one, your body adapts to it quite quickly, so you have to keep increasing the time. Two, your heart rate's going to be high, it's going to be all sweaty and horrible. Three, you pretty much have to very much get changed into your running gear or your other cardio gear that you're going to wear for it. And stuff like that. Whereas, you could easily work out in a t-shirt and shorts and get out again and job done, Like it's all, what I find with people is there's lots of little bits of time that they never fully allocate to their exercise regimen. So if they're like, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour, that's great. They'll spend an hour in the gym, but they're forgetting the 20-minute drive to the gym. They're forgetting the 20-minute shower after the gym. They're forgetting the 20-minute drive home. Then suddenly it's a 2.5 hour experience each day. And then they're stressed. They get home. They then cheat on their calories because they're stressed because they've got to get their baby to sleep, or they've got to get their children to school, or whatever it might be. And time just slips through their fingers, and their sleep's affected, then their work's affected. And it's just, you just have to be very real about the time you're going to spend in that building at that moment, at that time. And I think that's one of the most effective things that people need to start putting into their plans for it. And that's the other thing. How would you say your clients are with planning things? Are they diligent planners? Do you get them to plan stuff diligently, or do you let them kind of just figure it out as they go, or how does it work?
I will give them a fair amount of free rein. So I'll usually set some groundwork. So basically the groundwork is, how many days a week can you get into the gym? And this is provided I'm training a client either online one-to-one. So, I'm going to write you a program. How many days can you be in the gym? Or I would see a person in my gym. So we basically say, how many days can you get to the gym? 2 days, 3 days, 4 days a week. Perfect. We'll lock that in 2 or 3 days a week. Should you happen to come in more, that is just a bonus. That's for fun. So let's say you want to add in some extra arms or a booty blaster workout that you found on YouTube. Awesome, fun. Add it on top of the training program that we've got established. If you don't happen to get that in, no worries, because you've already got the bare minimum requirements that we need to have you in the gym. Usually on average for most people, it's about 2 to 3 weight training sessions a week. And then on top of that, I will usually just structure the total calorie intake and have a recommendation for protein. So, and protein at the very start of it, someone who's new to training and dieting, it doesn't even bother me what their protein target really is just starting off. I would just rather someone just get their calories sorted, and then people automatically start to justify their calories anyway. So once people start tracking, you get your MyFitnessPal out, you start scanning all your different barcodes, people will see that one apple is 100 calories, or they'll have a small handful of Smith's packet of chips, and that is 150 to 200 calories. And they have what I like to say is the holy shit calorie moment. They're like, holy shit, that's not worth my calories.
Yeah.
So they start to justify, what can I get what can I get in terms of bang for my buck in terms of the calorie allowance? And I like to have people go through that themselves, as opposed to me saying, no, you can't have this, you can have that, this is the best option. Because when people learn themselves, they teach themselves. So when I've actually had people come to me and they're like, do you know how many calories is in avocado? And I'm like, yes, there's a lot of calories in avocado. They're like, I'm never eating avocado ever again. I'm like, whoa, hang on a second. I'm like, you're dieting, you're on diet, you're on poverty calories at the moment. Yeah. When you get to go back to maintenance calories, let's talk about avocado. But just right now, avocado doesn't suit your calorie intake. It's not,
Plus,
it's not the best choice for you.
It's really hard to avoid avocado in Australia.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah,
Like, you can't walk into a restaurant, arvo on toast, arvo smash, arvo dip.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I don't know why it's so popular here, but avocado is pretty popular.
It doesn't seem that popular anywhere else I've been either. Like, I'm not overly well traveled, but nowhere in Europe is it as popular as it is in Australia. It's a huge thing, arvo.
Yeah. One other thing, in Australia, everyone here is a real big coffee snob as well. Yeah. So coffee, and especially me, like, I love coffee. If you go anywhere else in the world, it just doesn't compare to Australia coffee or what we have currently at the moment. And even in America, it's just filtered down, and it just doesn't compare. It's just not the same. So
I remember when my fiance's brother came over, and like, obviously he just got off the plane. We was at the airport. We met him, and he was like, "Oh, I could really do with a coffee." I was like, "Okay, great." And we have a chain here called Costa Coffee. And I got him I think he was he called it a long black. I was like, what the hell's a long black? I don't know what that is. And he just meant like an Americano. So I went and got him an Americano, and he took one sip of it and nearly spat it out. He was like, okay, is this coffee in England? I was like, quite good coffee in England as well. And he was not a happy bunny.
Nah.
And and then what I found amazing, he took me, when we was in Melbourne, he took me to his favorite coffee shop in Melbourne. I can't remember what it's called. I was just stunned by how, like, it was like an emporium of coffee. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And it took about 10 minutes to get my drink, which you just couldn't do that in the UK. If it took 10 minutes to get a coffee in the UK, you'd have no business at all. Like, we just work too quickly. We just move through life too fast.
Yeah.
And it's actually really nice that I noticed a huge thing in Australia is life is a lot calmer. You have a lot more time on your hands. It's just a slower pace of life, which is glorious compared to London and the Southeast and Europe and places like that. So I think we should all respect the fact that taking 10 minutes to get a coffee in your hand is worth it. It's definitely worth it. And
it's a sort of a big thing here. So you would literally go out for coffee and just have a coffee, and you would go to the, order it, sit down, have a talk. They'd bring your coffee out 5 minutes later, and you sit there and just talk over a coffee. That is a big thing in Australia.
Yeah. Here it's always like, you have to have the cake as well. It can't just be coffee. It's always like 3 or 4 coffees. It's normally hot chocolates. Like, here, companies plug hot chocolates and plug kind of like hazelnut lattes, and they you can't just get a coffee.
We don't get a lot of that here.
No, I know. That's what I mean. You're pure. It's pure. It's
lovely. It's untouched.
Over here, it's like laden with sugar, and it's not good. Right. Okay. So I suppose we better take up no more of your time. I'll tell you what. If I was to say to you, what would be 5 things that you wish you knew when you started 10 years ago that you now know that you'd like to like implement and you've learned over the 10-year period you've been training people?
So if I'm sort of referring this to if I was to start again, and what I wish I knew when I was restarting from scratch, is number 1, for fat loss, calories is the most important thing forever and will always be the most important thing. So figure out your calories and eat below them if you need to lose body fat. I would say sleep is massively, massively underrated. And there's also been studies now that have been done which have compared groups of restricted sleep versus people who get enough. And it showed that, what was the study? I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I can find it for you if you want. But both groups had lost weight, but the guys who got 6 hours sleep lost muscle, and the guys who slept 8 hours gained muscle,
Right.
and the guys who slept 6 hours gained fat, and the guys who slept more got lost fat. So they literally lost the same amount of weight, but what they lost
Was very
was
different.
either muscle or fat, depending on how many hours sleep they got.
That's amazing.
And that's just your, I forget the terminology, nutrition partitioning, I think it is.
Okay.
Basically what your body does with the food that goes in
Yeah.
and what your body decides to use as a fuel
Allot it
source.
to. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So you'll still lose weight, but the weight that we want to lose is body fat and not muscle.
Not your
So
muscle.
sleep is paramount. Minimum, and people will laugh at me when I say this, but minimum 8 hours if you're strength training more.
Yeah, I know.
I don't get that. We have kids. We have one son.
Yeah.
So, and just getting that is not possible. But if you can do everything in your power to work your way to that point, you won't be the life of the party, but your hunger will be much better. Your sleep will be better, obviously. Everything in life will improve with more sleep.
I find this, like just the biggest thing I find with sleep is it will just help control your stress, which will then help control your ability to stay on a diet. It will then help your ability to stick to your calories the next day. It's like sleep is your investment for the next day. It's not your recovery from the day you've gone through. It's about you setting yourself up for the future in the best way possible. If you look at sleep as a recovery for what's happened, then you're always going to be playing catch up. Look at it as an investment for tomorrow.
And it's actually one of those things that the sleep you actually miss out on, you can never actually make that sleep back. Once you've missed out on it, it's gone forever.
You can't
and
catch up on sleep.
Like, I mean, you can try and get more sleep in, but it just won't amount to the amount of sleep that you get. There's a really good book, again, recommendation. It's called Why We Sleep by, I think it's Matthew Walker. That's really good. It's recommended that you listen to it at night time, and if you fall asleep, awesome.
Great.
That's a really good book. So if you want to find out more about sleep, highly recommend that one.
My fiance, she is a paramedic, and she's doing a master's degree at the moment, and she's doing her thesis on sleep in people who work shifts and people who work 12-hour shifts, night shifts, how long it takes to recover. And what she's finding is the craziness of sleep in terms of that is crazy across the military, across other emergency services, all kinds of people, fire service, police, everything. And it has such a huge effect on your mental health, your physical health, your ability to recover, to deal with stress, cortisol levels. It's crazy.
I can't remember where I heard it, but I think that overall they were looking at lack of sleep and shift work as, I think it was something to do with a level 2 carcinogen. And this is just something I was reading. Possibly, I think it was the World Health WHO organization were looking into it to see, because it's such a detriment to your health. They're trying to put it up there in terms of, smoking and really, really, really unhealthy habits. But calories, sleep, getting in training doesn't have to be weight training, but just something that you enjoy that you can do long term is what's going to keep you in the game the longest. I would say food environment is massive. So having food readily available that's easy access, that supports your goal at the time. So if you surround yourself with crap food, or you buy crap food, quote unquote processed food, high calorie foods, at some point you will eat those foods. If you don't buy them, you can't eat them. And you can always rely on your own laziness to not go out and buy it at 12 o'clock at night when you're watching, I don't know, the Kardashians on TV. Tiger King, exactly. So if you don't have it readily available, it's much harder, and you can rely on your own laziness not to go and get it. And then number 5 is getting consistent and being happy with the mundane of just day in, day out, doing the grind. And one thing I like to try and explain to my clients is, if you just do the requirements daily, you don't have to worry about the goal. The goal will eventually just come to you by you just doing the steps daily. And you will literally, if you just put your head down and you just stick to it and just follow the calories, as much as you possibly can within reason, you'll just put your head up in 6 months' time and you'll be like, oh, I'm 30 kilos down or 20 kilos down, however much you need to lose. So yeah, definitely consistency and surrounding yourself with the right people and food does definitely go a long, long way.
It does indeed. That's awesome, Shannon. It's been such a good episode. God, we've been going for ages. That's great. There's just so, like, we just covered so much great stuff that everyone's going to enjoy without a shadow of a doubt. So that's awesome. Look, I mean, tell people where they can get a hold of you. I know we mentioned Instagram a few times, and and your Instagram is great. It was one of the things that inspired me to change my Instagram around. So, so that's nice. So yeah, so plug yourself and let us know how we can get a hold of you.
Yeah, sure. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to help out. I mean, I always reply to any messages. Shannon Billows Fitness, Instagram, website. You can message me on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to get to. Usually Instagram is where I usually post daily most of my information. But yeah, any of those, I'm pretty easy to get in contact with.
Good. How are you finding the added following and like the added pressure of having a big Instagram? How's that? How are you finding that? Is it fun?
Yeah, it's weird. You go through a very weird stage. So for those who don't know me or who don't follow my page, I probably went from about maybe 2,000, 3,000 followers, and over the course of a year, I'm almost up to about 16,000. 16,000. So, and that's just sharing helpful information about weight loss and, you know, diet strategies and things like that. And there was a very weird transition going from about 6,000 to 12, 13,000, where all these people would just come out of nowhere and they were like, "You're wrong. This is wrong. You're spreading misinformation." And I just dropped studies after studies and PubMed studies. I'm like, well, this is what the study said, and eventually everyone just gave up.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm cool to have a conversation with someone if they want to sit down and talk in a friendly way. But when people, I don't know, the fitness industry is just one of those places where everyone's opinionated, everyone's an expert. Even, you know, Susan at the watering hole at work has more information on nutrition and training than people who pay for degrees and courses in fitness and nutrition. And I think because people are so emotionally attached to what their beliefs are, everyone else should be doing what they're doing. So just do you.
Absolutely.
It is, yeah. So I just post what I know and I'm good at, and that's number one, helping people lose weight within a healthy, reasonable way. And that's pretty much what you'll find on my Instagram.
It is indeed, and it's a great place to be. Right, Shannon, thank you so much for staying up late for me and for jumping on the Fitness Solution this week. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And
no worries, Adam. I'll hopefully come back on again one day.
Absolutely, it'd be great. And yeah, I hope everyone stays safe in Australia. I hope you all look after yourselves, and I hope kind of you get through this as quickly as possible.
Yes, yeah. Hopefully this whole pandemic gets over sooner than later. And in the meantime, I'm just trying to enjoy these sleep-ins while I've got them.
Absolutely, that's what I'm doing. Awesome. Thanks, buddy. I'll catch you soon.
No worries. You're welcome.